So this is the Vomitron, what we'll be using in the Twitch chat to do, well, just make unfortunate life decisions. Built over the course of a few months. I would say the cost of it, just in parts and everything, I think this is definitely the most expensive part. That's like $1,000. Well, $700, but you ship things from China, and at the end of that, it's $1,000. That, yeah, it's probably way too much power for it. But that is, I would say, more than half the cost of this entire thing are these and those drives. Those guys right there. Metal's not too bad. A lot of this stuff is hand artisan made in this shoppy area, or just taken from things that I could find cheap and cut up to kind of use for this. So the seat, cheapest one I could find on Jags, in addition to the safety harness, eBay. Is that cam lock? I'm not sure. But that's the face. I really love that, because that's like the face you make on this. Is like, you know, that's a face of like, what am I doing with my life? How did I end up here? Why am I strapped into this? And will it break? And if you look at me, you're like, yeah, it's gonna break. Power runs through slip rings. Goes to these, which, oh, where's the plastic cap for that? Don't touch that. Which goes through, passes the AC that runs that panel, everything else. E-stop, so if you hit the E-stops on this, there's a 12-volt line that energizes these relays and allows power to pass from there to the drives. So when that is, here, hold on. Yeah. So that runs, you panic, you hit that, or you pull that, disconnects it. Stops eventually. By eventually, it's probably about a second or two for that to get de-energized, but because this is a reduction gear, it stops right off the bat. It stops mechanically. So, laptop mount, holds the laptop. I mean, the one that's not working right now should hold the crack book just fine. You know, just goes on that, threads in, you're good to go. That's not too bad. A pretty thick chain, about double the thickness of what I used in the beginning. I noticed it was stretching and would hop on those and make it sound about as loud as a gunshot. 1.75 inch drive shaft by 3/8 wall with another slip ring that goes through it, passes the AC. Yeah, no grommets, no problem. Also not safety capped. So that's pretty much that. There's a little chain tensioner there. It's basically building it and realizing where it's weak and building more stuff on top of it, just in incredibly unplanned ways. Like that tolerance there, it doesn't have a lot of room to be itself, which will eventually make it break. But that's a problem for future me. So that's that. There's a lot more there. It's all TIG welded, all fancy. Not really. I'm not a great welder. This is the computer side of it. That Raspberry Pi runs a few things, one of which is a Ruby or Rack web server. Gives you exposure to this, which allows you to write to the drives manually. This is pretty useful for testing, because I didn't have to, run around, go into the drive, manually doing up and down set registers, running back. It's just, yeah, it makes sense. So this gives you kind of a view into what it's doing, being able to control it, and this actually is the underpinning of how the Twitch thing interacts with it, because you can send it commands saying, write this value to this register, and in the drive there's some, like, I would call them like special registers that do more than just write to a register. Like, for example, I think 221 is speed, so you write 200 to speed, it'll write the necessary registers to start moving that drive at 220 RPM. So that's kind of what that's using. So during this, a lot of the commands are sent directly to that. They're completely automatic, so what you're voting on goes straight to that drive, or that drive. What goes there? It goes to those. It's wireless. So most of them are automatic. Some of them aren't, purely because those drives, I could show you the documentation for them, but it's not great. It's like ran about 3 times through the Google Translate ringer, and I haven't really figured out what the word they say it's everything has like a translation. They say this word, they say party, they mean funeral, but then they say funeral and they mean bar mitzvah. Like, not that exact case, but you get the idea. You got to understand that party is a bar mitzvah, which it kind of is. That's not a good example, but it's just translate things. So, is a bar mitzvah a party? I think it's a celebration, but a party is a celebration. That's cool. So this is another thing. This is the Python app that allows the arbitrator, somebody sitting here who's, yeah, that's probably not, I really hope I trust that person. So they have control over this stick, which is like a manual override of everything it does. So if I pass out, well, if I pass out, then I'll probably pull the E-stop because my arms will lift the thing up. But if all goes wrong, they have the stick to kind of like write the machine out, and they have the ability to toggle that, you know, disabled and enabled thing with the actual stick. So they have some control to help me, but I mean, if I'm practically thinking about it, this will be used more to harm me than to help me. Because there was one setting called chaos that allows the person to just take control of it completely and move it as they see fit, you know, do terrible things with it. So that'll be fun. But this is all remotely controlled. They could be inside the house, which wouldn't be a lot of help to me, but yeah. But yeah, that's the Vomitron. This should be fun.